The attic smells like cedar shavings and the inside of a church after a funeral. I'm barefoot on the pull-down stairs, flashlight beam jittering like a trapped moth. It's past midnight, the kind of August night where the heat forgets to leave when the sun does. The kids are downstairs. Jacob, curled around his giraffe. Caleb starfished across the sheets. Maggie's breathing is slow, steady, the only clock I trust anymore. I'm not up here for treasure. I'm clearing space for the Christmas boxes we swore we'd sort last year. Then the light snags on something that doesn't belong. A shoebox, not in the stack, not labeled, wedged behind a rafter like it's been waiting for me to grow tall enough to reach. The rubber band around it crumbles to dust when I touch it. Inside, one envelope, thick as a hymn book, addressed in Dad's late life scrawl, shaky, but still proud. To whoever finds this, burn it or believe it. Your call. My heart forgets its rhythm. Hey, Porch family. It's just me, rocking slow under a Carolina moon, so bright it turns the pecan leaves silver. Crickets stitching the dark with their tiny needles. Wine chimes answering from the clothesline. Tonight's tale isn't about hates drifting through the corn. It's about a father who carried a debt heavier than any harvest, a daughter who lived 3 days and was erased with black crayon. And a key I haven't turned yet. Let's ease back into that attic. Sweat pooling at the small of my back. I'm 38, but up here I'm 6 again, hiding from thunderstorms. The envelope feels like a brick. I pry the flap. Out slides a Polaroid and 3 pages folded so tight they fight to open. The photo first, Dad at 30. Kneeling in a cornfield at dawn, overall straps dangling. Grin wide enough to split his face, but his eyes, Lord, they're hollow as a carved pumpkin after Halloween. Behind him, a scarecrow with a rope noose knotted loose. On the back, blue ink bleeding into the gloss. Payment made. July 14th, 98. My knees forget how to hold me. Page 1 begins with an apology that could choke a preacher. Son, if you're reading this, I'm gone and the truth ain't. I was a proud fool who thought a man could outrun fate with borrowed money and a handshake. I was wrong. And I paid. God help me, I paid. The year the farm bled out, Grandpa's cancer had eaten the savings faster than drought eats topsoil. Hospital bills taller than the silos. Dad needed 50 grand yesterday. Banks laughed. Pride swallowed him whole. So he drove past the Waffle House, past the strip mall with the flickering open sign, to a man named Crow who loaned cash to desperate farmers. At a price, Page to sinks into shadow. Crow didn't want interest. He wanted a stand-in. One night, no questions. Dad thought it was moving crates, moonshine, maybe pills. It wasn't. He drove the truck. Uncle Ray rode shotgun with a shotgun. They collected Silas Boone from a bar in Bristol. Drove him to the cornfield. Under a harvest moon, fat and orange. They ended it. Dad never pulled the trigger. But he held the flashlight, heard the shovel bite earth. Smelled the iron in the air. Carried it every Sunday in the pew. Every Christmas at the table. Every bedtime story he rushed, so he could sit on the porch and stare at nothing. The Polaroid was insurance, a noose for Dad's soul. Page 3 is 2 lines, ink blurred like tears on cheap paper. I paid with a piece of me I can't get back. Forgive me for every bedtime I missed, every hug I rushed. I was keeping the dark out of our house the only way I knew how. I sat on that attic floor until the flashlight bled out, letter trembling, dust settling on my shoulders like ash from a burned bridge. Next morning, I fed the photo to the fire pit. watched the scarecrow curl into black lace, kept the pages, slid them into my Bible at Psalm 51, creating me a clean heart. Oh God, I used to think Dad's distance was disappointment in me. The way he'd look past my report cards. The way he'd nod but never smile when I told him about my first job. Turns out it was disappointment in himself. Every missed hug was a prayer he couldn't voice. Every rushed bedtime was armor. That letter didn't stop time, it restarted it. I call my boys in from the yard now, even when the grill's screaming. I sit on their beds until their breathing evens out, hand on their backs, counting heartbeats like blessings. I say I love you so often they roll their eyes. Good, let them roll, let them know. Some secrets rot if you bury them. Some bloom if you burn the right part. But the attic wasn't finished. It never is. I went back the next night. Sleep had become a stranger. The letter had pried open a door, and the draft wouldn't let me close my eyes. The attic smelled different now, like confession, like the inside of a coffin lined with cedar. I moved the Christmas boxes, pulled down the insulation, found another shoebox, smaller, lighter, tied with a red ribbon, faded to the color of dried blood. Inside, a child's drawing, crayon on construction paper gone yellow as old teeth. Stick figure family, Mom, Dad, me at age 6, and a baby in a crib. The baby was scribbled out with black marker, over and over, violent, final. On the back, Mom's handwriting, tight as a clenched fist. We never speak of this again. The floor tilted. I'd never had a sibling. Not that I remembered. Mom had a miscarriage when I was 4, that's the story they fed me. A late one. Too late to name. But this drawing was different. This was a baby who'd lived, who'd breathed, who'd been erased. I sat there until the sun bled through the vent. Drawing in one hand, letter in the other. To secrets, to ghosts, one attic. That's when I started digging. Not with a shovel, with questions. I called Aunt Ruth first. She lives in a double wide outside Knoxville, porch crowded with wind chimes that argue with the breeze. Her memory's sharper than the switchblade she keeps in her boot. I didn't mention the letter, just asked about the farm in '98, about Grandpa's illness, about Dad's late nights, silence thick as sorghum. Then, "You sure you want to open that door, honey?" I said yes. She sighed like a tire going flat. Your daddy wasn't the only one who paid Crow. Crow wasn't just a loan shark. He was a fixer. The kind you called when the bank laughed and the law looked away. He ran a crew out of an old tobacco barn off Route 11. Smuggled moonshine in mason jars, ran numbers on napkins, and when someone needed to disappear, he made it happen. Quiet, clean, for a price. Grandpa didn't just owe money. He owed time. Years of bad harvests, bad baits, bad blood. Crow had been circling since '95 like a vulture in a Sunday suit. When Grandpa got sick, Crow offered a deal, one job, one night, and the debt dies with the old man. Dad took it. But there was a catch. Always is. The job wasn't just a body. It was a message. Silas Boone had been skimming. Dad drove the truck. Uncle Ray rode shotgun. They collected Silas from a bar in Bristol. Drove him to the cornfield. Under a harvest moon swollen and orange, they ended it. Dad never pulled the trigger. But he held the flashlight. That's what broke him. But the baby Lily was something else. Aunt Ruth told me over sweet tea and tears that left rings on the formica. Mom had been pregnant again in '97. A girl. They'd named her Lily. She lived 3 days. Born too early. Lungs too small. The hospital said SIDS. Ruth said different. Crow came to the funeral. Stood at the back in a black suit, hat in hand. Didn't speak, just watched. Later, he sent a wreath, white lily, no card. 2 weeks later, Dad paid the first installment. Ruth thinks Crow poisoned the well. Not with arsenic, with fear, with whispers. With the kind of pressure that makes a man choose between his land and his legacy. Dad chose the land, and Lily paid. I hung up and drove to the cemetery, small plot behind the Baptist church, shaded by a dogwood that blooms pink every Easter. Her stone was tiny, unmarked except for a lamb and a date. March 12, 1997. I sat there until the sun bled out. Talked to her. Told her about her nephews, about how I'd teach them to bait a hook. To say grace, to never borrow from men like Crow. Then I went home and opened the third box. This one wasn't hidden. It sat on the shelf with the Christmas decorations, bold as brass. A metal lockbox, key taped to the bottom, inside. Cash. Stacks of it. 20s, 50s, 100s, all old, all crisp. And a ledger. Dad's handwriting. Dates, amounts. Names, Crow. Silas, Lily. Grandpa. Me. My name was last. Dated a week before he died. Amount. $50. 0 notes. For the boy. So he never has to choose. I counted it twice. 50 grand. Exactly what he owed in '98. Exactly what he paid to keep the farm. To keep me from ever knowing. He'd been paying it back. $1 at a time. From odd jobs. From selling scrap. From skipping birthdays and anniversaries. From never buying a new truck. From dying with calluses and a clear conscience. I cried then, not quiet, not pretty. The kind of cry that shakes your ribs and leaves you hollow. The next day, I did 3 things. First, I took the money to the church. Told Pastor Jim to use it for the food pantry. For single moms. For kids who needed school supplies. For anyone who might otherwise meet a man like Crow. Second, I carved Lily's name into her stone. Deep, permanent. So the rain couldn't wash it away. Third, I wrote my own letter. Not to my boys, not yet. To Dad. I told him I found the boxes. I told him I burned the photo. I told him I forgave him. I told him I was proud of him. I told him I'd raise his grandsons to know his name without shame. Then I folded it, sealed it, slid it into the Bible next to his. Some nights, I still climb those attic stairs, not to dig, just to sit, to listen. The house creaks like it's talking back. Sometimes I swear I hear Dad's boots on the landing. Sometimes I smell his coffee. Sometimes I feel Lily's tiny hand in mine. The farm's gone now. Sold to pay Grandpa's final bills. The cornfield is a subdivision with identical brick houses and HOE fees. The tobacco barn is a Starbucks with a drive-through and a tip jar, but the porch swing still hangs from the same oak, creaking the same song. And every harvest moon, I sit out here and tell this story. Not for views, not for likes, for the ones who need to hear it. For the dads who think they're alone. For the sons who think their fathers failed them. For the daughters who never got to be. Because here's the truth the attic taught me. Secrets don't die when you bury them. They grow roots, they twist, they choke. but real light cuts through. So if you're out there tonight, carrying something heavy, if you're staring at a ceiling fan at 3 a.m., wondering how to fix what's broken, if you've got a shoebox you're scared to open, do it. Open it. Read it. Burn what needs burning. Keep what needs keeping. Then write your own letter. Seal it. Hide it. Or don't. But live like the truth is a lantern, not a noose. Because it is. And because your kids are watching. They're learning. They're becoming. And one day, they might find your box. Make sure what's inside is love. Now, I could stop here. But the porch has more to say. Because every story has echoes. And this one echoed all the way to Jacob's 10th birthday. See, Jacob, he's the quiet one. The observer. The kid who notices when the milk's about to sour. Or when Maggie's smile doesn't reach her eyes. On his 10th birthday, he didn't want a party. Didn't want a cake. Just wanted to go fishing with me and Caleb at the old pond behind the church. We packed bologna sandwiches, root beer, and the tackle box Dad used to carry. Sat on the bank from dawn till dusk. Didn't catch a thing, but Jacob caught something else. As the sun bled out behind the pines, he pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Same yellowed construction paper as Lily's drawing. Same crayon. A stick figure family. Me, Maggie, him, Caleb, and a tiny girl with pigtails holding his hand. He didn't look at me. Just said, I dreamed her last night. She said her name was Lily. She said you'd know where to find her. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Just watched him skip that drawing across the water like a stone. It floated for a second, then sank. That night, I took him to the cemetery, showed him the stone, told him the parts a 10-year-old could carry, about love, about loss, about how some names are too heavy to say out loud until they're ready. He traced the letters with his finger. Then he looked up at the dogwood and said, She's not sad, Dad. She's waiting. Waiting, that word stuck in my throat like a fishbone, because maybe that's what all of this is. Waiting. For the right moment. The right heart. The right porch light. And maybe the attic isn't done giving. Last week, I found a 4th box, not hidden, not labeled, just sitting on the workbench where Dad used to fix the boys' bikes. Inside, a single key, rusted, heavy, attached to a tag in Dad's writing, for the barn. When you're ready. I haven't gone yet. The barn's been condemned 4 years, windows busted, roof caved, but the lock's still there. And the key fits. I'll go. When the next harvest moon bleeds orange over the corn stubble. When the house finally exhales and their bedroom doors stay shut. When Maggie's fingers lace through mine like they did the night we buried Grandpa. Because some doors you don't open alone. And some stories aren't finished until the last echo fades. So here we are, Porch family. The swing creaking slow. The night holding its breath. The lantern flickering low. If this tale stirred something in you, if it made you think of your own dad, your own kids, your own midnight choices, leave a light on in the comments. Tell me your attic, tell me your lantern, tell me the name you carved in stone. I'll be here, rocking slow, waiting for the next harvest moon. Until then, keep your porch light on. And your heart louder than your regrets. This is Sophia Stories. Good night.